Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. So today we're pulling back the curtain on something that I know might sound a little dry or like a purely bureaucratic process at first glance. We're talking about public procurement. Basically, how exactly does a government spend its money? Who gets the massive contracts to build our bridges, stock our public hospitals, or pave the roads we drive on every single day? Well, when these systems actually work, communities absolutely thrive. But when they're compromised by things like inefficiency, corruption, or just overly complicated rules, it literally drains public resources and kills fair competition. So we're going to uncover exactly how this whole system works, where it tends to break down, and most importantly, how you can actually fight back and demand better. Right off the bat, I want you to pause for a second and just think about your own neighborhood or town. Have you ever walked or driven past a government project? Maybe it's a half-finished bridge, a brand new road that's somehow already full of potholes, or a public building that's just been sitting there abandoned for years. Try to picture that specific project in your mind right now. And, without naming names or pointing fingers just yet, just visualize what that failure actually looks like. Because that abandoned project, it isn't just an eyesore. It represents millions of your taxpayer dollars completely diverted away from real, tangible public benefits. Okay, let's dive into this. What we're looking at here is a stark, totally real-world example of what procurement failure actually means on the ground. We're talking about seriously inferior quality. Roads that literally crack and cave in within a few months, or brand new facilities that start leaking on day one. When procurement goes wrong, it doesn't just happen on a spreadsheet in some locked back office somewhere. It manifests right in our neighborhoods. It messes up our daily commutes, it endangers public safety, and honestly, it forces the government to spend twice as much just to fix mistakes that never should have happened in the first place. So to empower you to actually do something about this, today's explainer is broken down into 3 quick parts. First, we'll look at what goes wrong in procurement. Next, the major red flags citizens should know about. And finally, we'll cover your specific rights under the new Government Procurement Act, or RA 12009. Let's get right into it. Starting us off with Part 1, what exactly goes wrong in procurement? Look, it is so easy to just dismiss public procurement as boring government paperwork. But as we're learning from our sources, staying silent on this issue is incredibly costly. When the public isn't paying attention, millions and sometimes literally billions of funds meant for public welfare just slip through the cracks. Let's rapidly fire through some of the most common failures here. First up, overpriced contracts. This is where the government somehow ends up paying triple the normal market price for basic everyday goods. Crazy, right? Then you have ghost deliveries. This is a huge one. It's exactly what it sounds like. Invoices get submitted, taxpayers pay them little, but the supplies or services just never arrive. We also see rigged bidding, where the winners are prearranged in secret, shutting out honest businesses entirely. Add in inferior quality materials and massively delayed projects that leave communities waiting years for promised facilities, and you really start to see the sheer scale of this problem. And the absolute crucial takeaway here is this. These aren't just abstract government failures. They are failures that fall squarely on us, on you, the taxpayer, the citizen. Every single time a contract is rigged or a ghost delivery gets paid out, it directly impacts your everyday life. It means less funding for our schools, less money for local health care, and it's a direct hit to your wallet. Now, we aren't talking about these challenges to make you feel helpless or create despair. We're doing it to create an informed public that knows exactly what to demand. Which brings us to Part 2, the red flags citizens should know. So we're pivoting now from just understanding the problem to actually building up your toolkit. And the good news, you do not need a law degree or an accounting background to be a watchdog for your community. You really just need to know how to spot the irregularities. Let's start by defining one of the most insidious practices out there, bid rigging. On paper, competitive bidding is supposed to find the absolute best value for the public, right? But bid rigging completely manipulates this. It involves highly suspicious situations like, imagine 3 different companies magically submitting the exact same, down-to-the-cent identical prices. Or maybe the losing bidders always seem to end up working as subcontractors for the guy who won. It's basically just a theater of competition, entirely designed to secure the contract for a pre-chosen winner while blocking out honest suppliers. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it maps out the warning signs. Let's look at some key indicators of procurement, fraud, and corruption, so you know exactly what kind of sneaky behavior to look out for before, during, and even after a contract is officially awarded. Let's break down a few of the clever little maneuvers used to bypass the rules. First, watch out for manipulated specifications. This is when the requirements for a project are written so narrowly and are so specific that literally only one supplier on Earth could possibly win it. Another massive red flag is improper single-source procurement. This happens when officials constantly claim there's an emergency just so they can completely bypass competitive bidding altogether. And then there's contract splitting. This is super sneaky. It's deliberately breaking one massive project into a bunch of smaller contracts just to stay below the financial thresholds that would trigger strict oversight. And hey, your forensic tools as a taxpayer don't stop once the contract is awarded. You've got to keep an eye out for post-award manipulation. This is when excessive change orders magically expand the project's budget right after a low bidder has already secured the contract. Also, look out for conflicts of interest, things like undisclosed ties, gifts, or cozy relationships between the officials awarding the contracts and the suppliers getting them. And of course, payment fraud. This includes duplicate invoices or paying out for those ghost deliveries without any actual proof that the goods made it to the community. Okay, moving on to our final section, Part 3, Your Rights under RA 12009. We've built up our awareness, and now it's time for proactive empowerment, because the laws are actually there to protect you. And knowing your legal rights is an absolute game changer when it comes to ensuring public funds are managed with integrity. Enter the new Government Procurement Act, or RA 12009. This is a landmark piece of legislation that totally modernizes the procurement framework. Think of it as both a shield and a sword for citizens. It introduces open contracting, strengthens oversight, and makes the whole process so much more accessible to the public. It's fundamentally designed to ensure your tax dollars are spent ethically and that there is real administrative liability when things go off the rails. And this brilliantly illustrates how, under this new framework, you are no longer just a passive bystander. Your rights and public procurement actively incorporate the public, significantly boosting the role of civil society organizations and everyday people just like you. Let's walk through the specific pillars of these rights. Step 1 is your right to information. You have the absolute legal right to request access to procurement documents, bidding procedures, and the award criteria. These documents must be made publicly available, period. Step 2 is your right to observe. Any citizen or civil society organization can actually monitor the entire process, from the first advertisement all the way to the contract award. You can even attend public bid openings to ensure everything is fair and legal. You are literally allowed to be in the room. But passive observation quickly turns into proactive action with these next two rights. You have the right to report. If you spot any of those red flags we talked about earlier, you can submit complaints and report irregularities, fraud, or misconduct through official channels, and you get protection from retaliation. Plus, you have the right to participate. That means entering bids without discrimination if you're a qualified supplier, and joining public consultations on major projects. This ensures your community's voice is actually heard before a single drop of cement is even poured. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, is your right to accountability. Under RA 20009, government units are absolutely obligated to explain exactly how public funds were utilized. You have the right to receive timely decisions on any procurement disputes and to demand fully transparent processes and reasoned decisions. The ultimate so what of this entire legislation is forcing real, tangible accountability from public officials. I want to highlight this quote directly from our sources because I think it perfectly summarizes everything we've talked about today. An informed citizen is the most powerful procurement watchdog a government can ever have. It is so true. The laws, even fantastic modernized ones like RA 12009, only work when people actually know they exist and when they actively use them. Knowledge and awareness are, without a doubt, a community's absolute best defense against corruption. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. We need to educate, engage, and empower one another. Think back to that failed, abandoned project you pictured at the very beginning of this explainer. How many of the red flags we discussed today have you witnessed in your own town? And more importantly, what will you do now that you know you have the legal rights to push back? The power to demand transparency and better public services is literally in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay vigilant and let's demand better together.
Please follow, support, and share this advocacy. Thank you for watching.